Hey now, Paul Mack here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about my favorite farm tool, the broad axe. I don't know why they call it a broad axe, but look how wide that is. That's a little joke. One thing that sets this axe apart from the felling axe or double bit axe is that it has a bevel on one side. Only on one side, and basically this is for hewing logs or making round logs square, hewing a square side to a log or a beam or whatever. These are made such that the handle can go on this way or this way, unlike a felling axe, and that's so that you can to accommodate whether you're a right hand or a left hand chopper. But I like, when I'm doing the work on the right side of the log, as I'm facing the log, I like for the bevel to be on my right side, which is kind of strange because most other things that have a bevel on one side, tools for instance like a chisel or a draw knife, I tend to like the bevel to be on the bottom or near the wood that I'm working on. The bevel facing the wood, it tends to work better with a chisel and a draw knife, or a bark peeler. If you're peeling bark, I like that. That's a one beveled, has a one bevel on one side, and I like for that to be facing the wood normally when I'm using that. But for the broad axe, I like it the other way. It tends to just work better when the bevel is opposite the piece of wood that you're working on. I don't know why that is. It just is that way for me. These can be expensive, pricey items. I think the reason is because it looks so cool hanging on the wall. It just does. I mean, not many people hang a claw hammer on the wall in your living room, but this just looks beautiful. I mean, it evokes images of Daniel Boone or pioneer days or whatever. It just looks good hanging above the fireplace. But they do tend to be pricey, especially the wider it is or the older it is. Some of them are handmade, especially if you find an old one. And a lot of times, you won't find these in really good shape. They've been left in somebody's barn. Maybe they fell off the wall and have been stuck in the ground for years and years, and the metal ends up getting pitted, little pits and rusty and so forth. And if you find, this one has some pits on it, it's not too terribly bad, but if you find one with pits on it and it's reasonably priced, go ahead and get it if you're wanting to use one, because for one thing, they can still be used. I mean, they'll still hew. It's good to have them sharp, but they can still be kind of dull and still work for hewing, I've found, because basically you're just hewing off chunks of wood in between score marks. I'll show you that in just a second. But if you happen to find one and it's kind of not in the greatest shape, it's got some pits on it, on the side opposite the bevel, if that's got a lot of pitting on it and you wanted to kind of restore it, bring it back a little closer to good shape than it is at the moment, I would take a hand grinder and grind this flat side only until you either lessen the pitting or get rid of it completely. And that would be the only time I would ever do anything to the side opposite the bevel. And I would also do that probably to this side as well. I'm talking about a broad axe is in pretty bad shape and you want to get rid of that pitting, and then grind down, everywhere where there's pitting, and get it down. You may not can get it all the way below the bottom of the pit, but at least make it a little bit better. And then you would be ready to reshape or sharpen this one bevel on this side. After that point, when you sharpen this bevel, you'll never want to sharpen the unbeveled side again, because it wouldn't do. Don't do that. You would only want to sharpen the bevel from that point forwards. And if it's, depending on how pitted it is, you're going to want to grind it down below the pits for sure. Because let me tell you why. If this side still had pits on it and you made your bevel here, then you're going to see the pits in the edge, and you want that edge to be as linear as possible, a smooth line with no pits and no little blemishes or dents or dings in it. So you're at least going to want to do that the first time and then never do this side again. Keep it oiled and hopefully it'll never get pitted again. And then form your bevel here. And the bevel on this one looks to be about 1/2 inch or so. Once you get that bevel back, and then you can put this in a vise or something and take a file to it and just very slowly sharpen it and get that edge back. I hesitate to use electric high-speed grinders on axes and things, because if you get it too hot, you'll end up messing with the temper and turning it blue. You just don't want to do that. So a slow filing with a file or a stone, a round stone or something like that, or a grinding stone. The old foot-powered grinding stone like the one I have over here is very good to sharpen axes and hatchets, and especially a broad axe with. You just want to hold that bevel very, very steady and find that one angle and not be messing with that angle or changing the angle of the bevel. One thing you've probably noticed is that it's got a crooked handle. You say, don't you know how to make a straight handle? Well, yeah, most of the time. But on a broad axe, you kind of want a crooked handle, because as you're hewing a log and you're down there over that log, you want to be able to keep your knuckles away from the log, or you ding your knuckles every time you make a hit or every other time. And so that's why you see these broad axes that have curved handles. And a lot of time, if it's a ready-made bought handle, it'll be steam bent to get that curve in it. And because I didn't have really any, I didn't want to try to steam bend one at the time, so I basically just whittled mine into a curve, and it's done fine all these years. I guess it's gotten loose at some point, and I put some fence staples in there. That was real innovative, wasn't it? And just anything to keep it tight down there, and it's not been moving, so it's been doing good a number of years now. As I said before, broad axes are chiefly used in making round logs square, putting a flat side on round logs. And that's basically a two-tool operation. You would want to use a broad axe, but also a felling axe for that. And the felling axe would be used to make score marks on the log about 4 or 5 or 6 inches all the way down. You chop a notch into the log at the depth that you want taken off. Basically, a broad axe is for taking off the in-betweens that the felling axe scores, and leaving you a flat surface. And a broad axe, or hatchets too, there are broad axe hatchets, and they're basically for hewing, taking off that part that you don't want on the log, where if it's a round log, you don't want the round sides. You take it off and it's flat. So the hewing process basically is a two-tool operation. First, the log would be, you stand on top of the log to hew one, and you take a felling axe and you make the score marks ever so many inches down the log. Then you come back with the broad axe, and you're basically using the broad axe to take off all the in-betweens. And once you've done that, and you hew it and make it as smooth as you can with the broad axe, and you're left with basically a flat side. Now, if you want to be very precise about your measurement and about the beam that you end up leaving, of course you can hew a beam by eye, just by eyeing it, which is what a lot of old-time farmers did if they were making wall logs for their barn or making cross ties. But you can also take a chalk line and snap that chalk line on both sides of a log and get whatever your distance is. A lot of times 5 inches was the width of a wall log, it seems, in the South anyway. And you'd make those 2 chalk lines, and then you would score in to the chalk line. You don't want to go any deeper, and you don't want to be shy of that. And then you'll come along with a broad axe and chop off all the in-betweens between your score marks. Hewing was often, especially if you're doing longer logs like 18 foot, which is a typical length of a wall in an old log cabin or log home. If you're doing an 18-foot log, it's safe to have it be a 2-man operation. One man is on one side of the log going down scoring it, and as he gets a certain safe distance away from the other guy comes along with a broad axe and starts hewing off all the in-betweens of between the score marks, and then they turn the log and do another side, turn the log. Depending on how many sides you wanted hewed, sometimes on old structures or on barns, they might hew the outside and the inside of the log and leave the top and the bottom of a wall log round. There was not necessarily any need to hew that off because they were going to be chinking that space up anyway, and it'd be less chinking if it's round where it met. And sometimes on cabins you might hew the inside flat and then leave the outside round. It just depends on who the farmer was, who the builder was building it. It tended to be handy to have hewn logs on the inside walls because you could take sawn boards or rived boards, split boards, or palings, and nail those boards to make your basically board chinking. You're nailing boards between the cracks in the logs, and then you'd give a hard surface from the outside to put your mud chinking or your clay chinking, have something for that to go up and rest on. Plus, it was just the farmer's wife, she wanted to hang a picture on the wall, and it's just, I guess, a little bit easier to hang stuff on the wall if the walls are flat. So that was a good use for making round logs square. Another use for the broad axe would be in wintertime, the farmer and his sons, or daughters, I guess, if they're rather tough, could go cut hardwoods, and they could make cross ties for the railroad company. They would do that in winter when they didn't have crops or the other tasks of the day to do in the field or in the garden, which if you got good at it, you had a couple of good sons, and one could do the scoring and one could do the hewing, and just keep on going until you have a bunch of cross ties to sell for extra money to the railroad. Of course, those days are gone. I don't know that any railroad's going to want to buy any cross tie I would make. Another use for the broad axe is peeling the bark off logs or poles. A lot of times people use draw knives for peeling poles or pole peeler. I prefer my heavy-duty pole peeler that I've got over there, but I have used a broad axe in a pinch. In fact, you can peel a log on the ground with a broad axe. You just got to find that sweet spot, which is just barely just off of center, just a little bit, and just keep on going. The bark comes off very easily, and then you'll turn it and get all the bark off. Or it's pretty simple if you're making poles for rafters or things and you need them peeled, to just go to the standing pine in the field before you cut it, before you fell the pine, and just peel it with a broad axe while it's still standing, because the tree is holding itself, and all you got to do is peel all the way around. Then you can cut it and your pole's already done. The broad axe is very, very handy for that. Besides all of its usefulness, the broad axe is just a beautifully aesthetically pleasing implement of work. So go find yourself one at an antique store. Hopefully you'll get a good deal on it. I hope you do. I hope you find a reasonably inexpensive one, and an old one, man, from the 1700s or something. I hope you find a treasure. Get it all cleaned up, get it ready to work, put it on make you a new handle out of hickory if you need one, and actually go buy two. Put one above the fireplace. Your wife will love it, and then keep one shiny out in your tool shed ready to hew logs. You won't regret it. So I guess that's about all I have to say about my favorite tool, the broad axe. See, look how wide it is. Until next time, I'm Paul Mack. Oh, wait, forgot to tell you, subscribe, please, if you haven't already, and like the video, if you liked it, and please share these videos with other like-minded people. It really helps the show a whole lot. Until next time, I'm Paul Mack. Thank you for watching. I'll talk at you later.